Oh, hello, great readers. I'm Belchan.
I'm Nimakong.
I'm Banchan.
In this class, I'll read to all of you a part of Great Expectations.
As.
Ah.
Great Expectations. Charles Dickens. Chap. 22 Sec 1. The pale young gentleman and I stood contemplating one another in Barnard's Inn, until we both burst out laughing. The idea of its being you, said he. The idea of its being you, said I. And then we contemplated one another afresh, and laughed again. Well, said the pale young gentleman, reaching out his hand good-humouredly. It's all over now. I hoped. I derived from the speech that Mr. with his execution. But I made a modest reply, and we shook hands warmly. You hadn't come into your good fortune at that time, say Herbert Pocket. No, said I. No, he acquiesced. I heard it had happened very lately. Yes. Miss Havisham had sent for me, to see if she could take a fancy to me. But she couldn't at all events. I thought it polite to remark that I was surprised to hear that. Bad taste, said Herbert. Often. But a fact. Yes. She had sent for me on a trial visit, and if I had come out of it successfully, I suppose I should have been provided for. What's that? I asked, with sudden gravity. He was arranging his fruit and plates while we talked, which divided his attention, and was the cause of his having made this lapse of a word. Offence, he explained, still busy with the fruit. Betrayed. Engaged. What's his named? How did you bear your disappointment? I asked. Pooh, said he. I didn't care much for it. I don't say no to that. But I meant Estella. That goes hard and haughty and capricious to the last degree. None, said he. Why should she wreak revenge on all the male sex? Warded. Mister. Puh, said he. No, said I. Dear me. It's quite a story, and shall be saved till dinner time. And now let me take the liberty of asking you a question. How did you come there? I told him, and he was attentive until I had finished, and then burst out laughing again, and asked me if I was sure afterwards. I didn't ask him if he was, for my conviction on that point was perfectly established. Wistu. Cheggers is your guardian. I understand, he went on. You know he is Miss Havisham's man of business and solicitor. This was bringing me, I felt, towards dangerous ground. I answered with a constraint I made no attempt to disguise, that I had seen Miss Cheggers in Miss Havisham's house on the very day of our combat, but never at any other time, and that I believed he had no recollection of having ever seen me there. He was so obliging as to suggest my father for your tutor, and he called on my father to propose it. Of course he knew about my father from his connection with Miss Havisham. My father was Miss Havisham's cousin. Not that that implies familiar intercourse between them. Herbert Puckett had a frank and easy way with him that was very taking. I had never seen anyone then, and I have never seen anyone since, who more strongly expressed to me, in every look and tone, a natural incapacity to do anything secret and mean. There is something wonderfully hopeful about his general air, successful or rich. I don't know how this was. Then but I cannot define by what means. He was still a pale young gentleman. Briskness. That did not seem indicative of natural strength. He had not a handsome face, but it was better than handsome, being extremely amiable and cheerful. His figure was a little ungainly, as in the days when my knuckles had taken such liberties with it, but it looked as if it would always be light and young. With a mistake, Trav's local work would have sat more gracefully on him than on me. Maybe a question. I carried off my new suit, as he was so communicative. The ears. I therefore told him my small story, and laid stress on my being forbidden to inquire who my benefactor was. Blaise, and knew very little of the ways of politeness. A hint whenever he saw me at a loss or going wrong. With pleasure, said he, though I venture to prophesy that you'll want very few hints. I dare say we shall be often together, and I should like to banish any needless restraint between us. Christian name. I thanked him and said I would. I informed him in exchange that my Christian name was Philip. I don't take to Philip, said he, smiling, for it sounds like a moral boy out of the spelling book. He was so lazy that he fell into a pond, or so fat that he couldn't see out of his eyes, or so avaricious that he locked up his cake till the mice ate it. Lived 10D in the neighbourhood. I tell you what I should like. We are so harmonious. I shouldn't mind anything that you propose, I answered. Would you mind Handel for a familiar name? There's a charming piece of music by Handel. Then, my dear Handel, said he, turning round as the door opened. Here is the dinner, and I must beg of you to take the top of the table. This I would not hear of. So he took the top, and I faced him. Acquired additional relish from being eaten under those independent circumstances, with no old people by, and with London all around us. This again was heightened by a certain gypsy character that set the banquet off. For a while the table was, as Mr. Humblecook might have said, of a comparatively postulous and shifty character. He fell over them. The melted butter in the armchair, the bread on the bookshelves, the cheese in the coal scuttle, its parsley empty in a state of congelation when I retired for the night. All this made the feast delightful. And when the waiter was not there to watch me, my pleasure was without alloy. We had made some progress in the dinner, when I reminded Herbert of his promise to tell me about Miss Havisham. True, he replied. I'll redeem it at once. Let me introduce the topic. Handel. The mountain for fear of accidents when that while the fork is reserved for that use. It is not put further in than necessary. It is scarcely worth mentioning. Only it's possible to do as other people do. Also, the spoon is not generally used overhand, but under. This has two advantages. You get at your better, which after all is the object. and you save a good deal of the attitude of opening oysters. He offered these friendly suggestions in such a lively way that we both laughed and I scarcely blushed. Now, he pursued, concerning Miss Evesham. Miss Evesham, you must know, was a spoiled child. Her mother died when she was a baby, and her father denied her nothing. Her father was a country gentleman down in your part of the world, and was a brewer. I don't know why it should be a crack thing to be a brewer, but it is indisputable that while you cannot possibly be genteel and bake, you may be as genteel as never was and brew. Yet a gentleman may not keep a public house. May he? Said I. Not on any account, returned Herbert. But a public house may keep a gentleman. Well, Mr. Havisham was very rich and very proud. Miss Havisham was an only child, I hazarded. Stop a moment. I am coming to that. Well, she was not an only child. She had a half-brother. Her father privately married a Guineas cook. I thought he was proud, said I. My good handle. So he was. He married his second wife privately, because he was proud. And in course of time she died. When she was dead, I apprehend he first told his daughter what he had done, and then this became a part of the family, residing in the house you are acquainted with. As the son grew a young man, he turned out riotous, extravagant, and to fill out bad. To be continued.